I request you all to please be seated so that we can start with the first session of the day at track 3. I also request you all to kindly keep your cell phones on silent so that we can hear whatever the thought-provoking session is all about. And also I would request if you could restrict some of the movements towards the back. All right. So this session is all about Seabed-to-Space, securing the strategic continuum. As strategic competition expands across maritime, digital, and orbital domains, the Seabed-to-Space doctrine is emerging as a framework for integrated security and resilience. The session examines how nations can protect critical infrastructure, secure data flows, and synchronize undersea, terrestrial, and space-based assets to strengthen strategic advantage. And to welcome our esteemed moderator, Lieutenant General P.S. Minhas, Synergia Foundation. Please give him a round of applause. He's going to open the floor, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you, sir. And we have a couple of other esteemed panelists joining us today with no particular order. I would like to call Mr. Sudhir Misra, DRDO. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep on welcoming them. Air Marshal Ashish Singh, VM, VSM, ACAS, Strat IF. So we welcome you. Mr. Vasudev, scientist at G, LRDE from Bangalore, we welcome you. Dr. S. Veerabhutiran, scientist, G, Chess, Hyderabad, we welcome you as well. And last but not the least, we have got Dr. S.K. Vasudev, former Chief Controller, Strategic Systems. We welcome you all, sir, and I would now hand over the floor to Sir Moderator. Please take care.
Good afternoon. Am I audible, sir, at the back? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of time management because the previous sessions were only 2 and those are still ongoing. Notwithstanding, we got about, first and foremost, sir, a very warm welcome to the panelists who made it from all over. Thank you so much on behalf of the organizers and on behalf of my foundation, sir, Synergia Foundation. So, gentlemen, there are 5 eminent speakers. They are domain experts, and I am a retired Army general, not that domain expert in what they have the expertise. So what we are going to do, since we got 40 minutes, I'll just take about a minute or 2 to make my initial remarks, and then I'll request sirs to make their particular viewpoints for about 6 minutes in the initial part, and the topic being as such, after the initial remarks by all the 5 speakers, time permitting, we'll have a little discussion on key point that merits discussion, Q&A if possible, and try and wind up within the allotted 40 minutes time if possible. Gentlemen, as a topic we have chosen, seabed to space. This space is indeed very vast, right? So what earlier were the peripherals are now the enablers or the force multipliers, and are entering into the core portion of the strategic continuum that we are talking about. So new frontiers, new architecture, an upcoming future-looking nation looking for a comprehensive security in next 10 years, right? So data, the other technologies, what have you. So how do we look as security, which is much wider than what it used to be earlier? The fog of war earlier now is the fog of data, right? The seabed, underwater domain awareness, the surface, aerospace, etc., and what have you, emerging technology. So what we'll do is, there are particular specific topics that we have requested the speakers, whatever they feel free to cover some of the segments or some of the points, even if they're a bit overlapping. So I'll hand over the mic first, sir, to you, Sudhir sir, for your initial remarks, please.
Thank you. Shall I take it back? Good morning. Good morning, friends. Thanks, General Minhas. You see, seabed to sea to space, very challenging, and a real. It's not only the strategic challenge; it's a technological challenge. Uh, the the objective is how to position and ensure India's strategic interest and derive the advantage to overwhelm our adversaries. I come from the defense background, so I would talk more about that. Of course, there are civilian advantage, disadvantage, challenges also would be discussed by my colleagues. The second thing is, what are those? If we do a little bit of analysis, we have seen the energy crisis, the energy supply chain, which has threatened the economy of several countries. So they are on the sea. The second is the data lines. The data lines, the internet cables, which were threatened recently in the Strait of Hormuz, and thankfully nothing happened to that. But just imagine if something happened to it, what would have been the consequences? And we have the submarines lurking in Bay of Bengal, Indian Ocean, and Arabian Sea, just very close to our interest. Then we have still unexplored minerals, maybe rare earth, and the shale oil deposits in our own sea. How to exploit? The next is we have sea-based platforms like warships and submarines. Now, aircraft carriers. And we have seen recently that both the warships and aircraft carriers, they became irrelevant by a much inferior country like Iran, and they had to be withdrawn back to US. The reasons which are cited in public are different, but we know what happened to them. And once upon a time, they used to be the decision makers, the war winners, and today they have become the burden, they have become liability. So what is going to be the next? How to ensure that our strategic assets are secured? When it comes to space, again we have offensive and defensive. Offensive, when we have the enemy satellites looking into our strategic targets, then how to ensure that it doesn't happen? The second is offensive. How to ensure that, of course, it has been declared that space is for the peaceful purpose, but someday, maybe in the future, how we have to develop the technology and their components to ensure that when the time comes, when the threat is really, going to question our existence, then how to ensure that the space, we have a dominance in the space. We are able to utilize the space assets of our adversaries. And recently, we all know that Pakistan has launched satellites, 6 satellites using Chinese rockets, and they are looking nowhere else but towards South Asia, mainly towards Pakistan, North India, J&K, Himachal, and Northeast, of course. And their orbit is designed in such a manner that they keep looking at us only. And so how to ensure? You see, what happened in the Operation Sindoor, we have seen what all happened. We were not fighting with Pakistan. We were fighting with Pakistan, Turkey, China. And in future, as India's rise has been challenged, India's rise has been challenged by saying so that there is no place for another power. So we feel that all the superpowers are going to go against us, except Russia. So I'm not naming them, but they are going to ensure that you don't rise. So you are going to fight with almost all the advanced nation than us. So how to do? And the Pakistani satellites are able to monitor all the camouflaged items, high precision imagery they are going to provide to their services. There is one technology which I feel we have to master. That is, you see, we have already demonstrated the anti-satellite missile in the Operation Shakti, but it was very, you can say, visually very demonstrative kind of thing. It has to be silent. It has to have a stealth in the space. How to do that? A very simple thing is, if enemy satellite is just orbiting, you go and stand in front of that, or you go and hit it from the back. So you have to put a lot of anonymous objects which can become operational when you have a demand. So we have to develop that kind of capability. Looking at the past 2 years history, when ISRO has, not able to launch several of their rockets, I'll say setbacks. So in this kind of evolving situation, the challenges are really so many. And my colleagues are going to discuss more about that. I'm sorry if I have taken more time. Thank you. Thank you.
German, although I should have introduced her much earlier for the benefit of a few who may not know him. A distinguished scientist, due apologies, sir, for post-facto introduction, sir. DG, he's now the DRDO chair, emeritus, right? Ex-DG Brahmos, ex-CEO and MD Brahmos Airspace, extensive 4 decades of involvement in missile designing, development, operationalization, fielding, and the results of, obviously you know about it, in India, co-jointly, and a whole lot of other achievements. So we have a distinguished person sitting on my left, from mine to market. Is that right, sir? Yeah. Is the fructification that sir has done. Thank you so much, sir, for giving such a vast spectrum in a few minutes. Now over to Air Marshal Ashish, our serving Assistant Chief of Air Staff, Operations, Remote. 4,000 hours of experience, Kargil war veteran, flown everything from MiG-21s to Mirages, right, sir? And he will let us know what he's speaking on, 3 to 4 points on the emergence of a few domains, mobility technology, futuristic organizations to handle them, and whatever sir feels appropriate. Over to you, sir. Please.
Can you hear me at the back? Can you hear me at the back? Check. Okay. I'll not take too much time on the starting introduction. The graduate school I went to had a motto, from the past, the future. And that's what my talk is going to do. Explain or explore the past to try to extrapolate the lessons for the future in kind of 6 minutes as you've given, sir. The talk here, as I see, is about 4 domains, and information, if you count it as a domain, would be the 5th element, but otherwise 4 domains. 4 physical domains is what I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about the progression of these domains. Initially, power was all wielded through the land domain, right? Kings were all on land. Thereafter came the rise of the maritime domain. The Dutch and the English ruled this world, for example, when the maritime domain came up. Or because they invested in the maritime domain, they ruled the world. The last century has been, as I say, the century of air power. This is the era, this is the air domain right now playing out. Any nation right now that is, you see who's number one, number two. Air power is the main instrument of influence, especially power influence, real influence, military influence in this world. Space is coming. In the rise of these domains, this is my next point, there are many factors. One critical factor has been mobility technology. The Romans ruled the world with 55,000 miles of road that they built, their world, the Roman world. The arrival of the horse changed things in Europe. 8th century AD, one author claims that feudalism largely came in because of the horse and the stirrup and what it did to power equations. The knights smashed infantry. But it is in the 12th century when the Mongols really showed you horsepower mobility, and they made the biggest empire in history, right? So from the Romans and Alexander, foot power or land power, now this form of mobility came up. Maritime power thereafter came into rise. It was rising before that and now became a dominant force. So it's maritime form of mobility which was powered initially by galleys, oarsmen, sail, steam, and then the combustion engine. That's the point I'm making. This combustion engine also led to, in a way, a relative decline of maritime power because two artifacts came out of this, the submarine and the aircraft. They actually, in some ways, stopped maritime power, in some ways enabled it. I'll talk a little about that. It is from, and then came air power. And it is, if you will notice today, who are space powers? They are the powers who've got aero engine technology. You just name them. US, aero engine. There are about 5 countries that have a clamp on aero engine technology. And you will find who's really good in space. Right from France, US, USSR, and now China. Right? India is a bit of an exception. I'll talk about that. So this air power domain, so let's say Israel, America, 2 countries believe great in air power, and now you have space domain coming in. Initially only 2 players, USA and USSR, and now it suddenly opened up after that. Although France was always kind of independent in multiple domains. So mobility has been crucial. This mobility has also been enabled by PNT, position, navigation, and timing technologies, right from the maritime chronometer, I think 16th or 18th century, to the atomic clock that you have today. That's a supporting technology to mobility, and it is of great use in space today. There's a reason I'm showing this pattern. Right. In this, now the third point, in this evolution of domains, I find a jump off of technology, one domain to the other. There are 2 ways of looking at it. One, the emergent domain initially started out as a support for the previous domain, enabling it hugely. So maritime power was hugely enabled. They were actually initially used to carry only soldiers on ships that used to board other ships. And that's how maritime power grew in the initial phases. Later, as Corbett said, they would transport armies to distant lands and then occupy those lands, like India got occupied. Fine, so each one domain enabled the other. This pattern kind of continued. So now you see that, and even doctrine-wise, you'll find air power enabled maritime power by aircraft carriers, for example. World War II aircraft carriers came into their own. It also enabled armies which initially had air arms, dominated other armies much better, till the air forces came out as a separate organization. So there is this jump off that is happening, where the support a technology is coming as a support technology, enabling the dominant domain and then becoming a dominant domain by itself. With that extrapolation, today space enables air power more than anything else. That's the pattern I see. And there is a lesson to this. This is the 4th and last part where I will conclude. When I draw all this together, today, as I said, every true space power is also an aviation power with the ability to create air power, the dominant domain of today. Chances are as space weaponizes, if it does, the probabilities are increasing. It's already militarized. That militarization is increasing. Weaponization is a high probability. Chances are space powers will be the powers that are the dominant aviation powers of today. India is one exception that became to a degree a space power, but is not an aviation power, does not have the ability to grow aviation. I'm not talking about manufacturing aviation, right? And I believe if you don't become an aviation power, your chances of becoming a space power are going to be limited. It's not just the engine technologies, it is even the PNT technologies. There are so many sub-component technologies that space uses that come from aviation. For example, inertial, very accurate inertial navigation. In aviation, it came from maritime. The first inertial navigation was not Sperry, it was before that. It was a long German name, a guy who wanted to take a submarine to the North Pole. He is the guy who invented the first inertial system, right? So from maritime technology, it went to aviation technology, enabled it, and from aviation, it will go to space. Till we become an aviation power, I find it difficult that we will become a space power. Right, very last point. Organizationally, therefore, I believe we must create the right organization to make us both an aviation and a space power. I would be a big advocate for the Indian Air Force to graduate to becoming an air and space force, as has happened with the US, as has happened with the French. Later, the space force can hive out for itself when it attains that momentum. But right now, I believe this is the biggest or the right path. It will to enable that security that we are looking at organizationally. I'll stop here. All I will say is this will also enable private industry. There is a connect here. I'm out of time. If this happens, private industry will benefit then compared to where we are right now. I'll close it here and we can take the rest in the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashish. We have a few questions both for Dr. Sudhir and the Air Marshal, but I think we'll keep it in the end, time permitting, to generate some little worthwhile and I'm say animated discussions. Okay. Next, sir, we have Dr. S. Veera, scientist G. He represents the Center for High Energy Systems and Sciences, a laser and a communication expert. And he's going to talk on high energy lasers for space debris mitigation, amongst other that he would like to talk, so as to enable the next era of sustainable space operations for India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, all. I'll take things forward what our Mr. Sir brought out, how to protect Seabed-to-Space. Now I'll just give you the flavors of one of the technologies where the laser system plays a major role, how that can do the job for right from seabed to space, how we can protect our assets, how things can go further. Now this is just one single slides which will tell you that laser, it has the power from milliwatts to kilowatt level, and they find the suitability in every space. If you talk about the counter space, countermeasures, you have the laser designators and range finders, all those in the low scale, and they are very much useful for the services to take the precautionary actions. When you come to the such kind of warfare scenarios, like a chemical or biological warfare, something is released, another laser-based system known as a LIDAR can detect such kind of within kilometers away so that you can protect your assets. And the maritime, that nowadays the sea is also becoming vital source for the defense. And there are systems, laser system, which can detect the submarines. They can track it and give the information about the submarines. Then directed energy weapon. That is the most important things which I'll tell you in the next slides, how it is effectively being used elsewhere in the world and as India, how we are doing it. And coming to the space, yes, space, there are satellites, they are doing so much of surveillance. We can also have it, counter them. How we can do it, there are some information I'll provide you. And again, the laser is one of the beautiful secure communications, ground to space, space. You cannot interfere with any of the things. And bit rates are very high and wonderful. And technology is coming up in India. I'm coming to the DW, Directed Energy Systems or weapon. They use the very high powers in the order of kilowatts. Those kind of systems, the fires the lasers, focused beam onto the targets, that burns the material. This is what the concept. And unlimited. There is no that my bullet khatam ho gaya. Aisa nahi hai. You can continuously fire as long as you are on the targets. and they can be deployed on the ground, ship, airborne, and spaceborne. So the one systems can do all the multiple operations depending upon the requirements. If you want to protect ships, warfare, high-value systems, there is always you can deploy it so that they can counter them any incoming UAVs, missiles, and hail and mails. And if you talk about the airborne platforms, putting a system on the airborne platforms, you can counter them, the missiles. There is no atmosphere, there is no loss of energy, just focus the beam and counter them. And some of the European countries already mastered this technology. Coming to the space, yes, the space is the domain who conquers, wo jeetega. Now the fourth vertical is, that is the one. It's because space is our entire ground operation controlled by space. If you can take over, then you are the masters. But you have to counter them also. Either do it from the space or do it from the ground. Both way, the laser system plays a very vital role. These videos are available in the open literatures, and just trying to make you how it is going to protect our assets. Now this another one important things. Though you have all the technology, you have the satellite on the space, but you cannot get away from these debris which can damage you. It's no way at all that you can escape. There are a lot of missions, a lot of our operational satellites are under threat of debris. Those debris, if you want to remove it, if you want to take necessary actions, again, this laser technology, do it from the space or do it from the ground. You can bring down the debris from the space so that you can protect your space assets. And the technology module wise, if you happen to see, there are some, I listed out 7 major technologies. Those who are working in this area, they will be getting it more clearly. They have the lasers, beam control systems, and a tracking system like that I listed out. And in India, we are matured only to the some extent. We need to progress much more. This one video, one slide is going to tell where we are. Yes, till now I brought out what is the technology. Where we are right now, this is also available in the open literature. We have also matured certain extent, certain levels to counter the unmanned aerial vehicles, which is kilometers away. You can track them, damage them, or whatever, you can do the necessary action. But the technology is not ending here. We have to take things much farther. If we talk about this, my last slides, when you talk about the futuristic requirements, when you talk about this futuristic requirement, we are actually a certain level only. We have to focus on to all the industries, our R&D institutes, focus on to the development of multi-kilowatt laser systems to counter the hypersonic missiles. As of now, technology is not available. Then adaptive optic systems, because we have to focus on the laser at longer ranges. Hence, we need to have all the optical technologies and beam directors. And if you want to deploy the systems on the space, the power requirement is very high. According to the technology has to be deployed. Because once you put this kind of system on the space, it's a Star Wars scenario. It can be achieved anytime down the line. As India, you can wait and see. Then integrate multi-domain laser network. It is not the only one system is going to do the entire job. You have to create the kind of laser defense web. Integrate ground-based, airborne, shipborne, and spaceborne, so that you can take all the necessary action as and when required. Through that way, you can protect all your critical infrastructures and space assets. Infrastructure could be any of the strategic locations, any of our warships, any of the troop mounts, so many things are there. So with this, I'll conclude it here. Just given the experience, we need to have a network of the systems to protect our assets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Veera, sir. Now, gentlemen, on to my extreme left are the two Vasudevas, and Dr. Vasudev on the extreme left, and Mr. Vasudev on his right. So I'll go to Mr. Vasudev, who's Scientist G from the Electronics and Radar Development Establishment. The amount of involvement, his contribution that is there in the realization of signal and data processing of various types of long range, very long range, and CDR radar, TCR radars, and you are going to focus on BMD, if I said. if I get it right, I think yesterday I read it in a newspaper that on 10th and 11th, we've carried out 3 consecutive test flights, if I got it right, and we have the capability as per the DRDO to be able to address IRBM and ICBM threats. Sir, please enlighten us on this critical component of seabed-to-space warfare. Over to you, sir.
So, at the outset, I thank General Minhas and then Synergia Foundation for giving me an opportunity to address the gathering. So, a little bit of history. So, if you get into the origin of missiles, so during World War II, the British, the Germans were launching multiple air attacks on British, and British had built their own defense systems. So primarily it was the foam chain radar systems, and then multiple guns to engage the Luftwaffe for the German Air Force ships. So finally, when the German Air Force was on the decline, so they invented 2 main technologies. The first one was called, which is a basic cruise missile. It is called the V1 bomb. So what they did was they put a small pulse jet engine, and they made a crude cruise missile, and they had a small propeller attached to it. And this was launched from the France occupied territory into the British. So it had a small propeller which used to count the distance, and as soon as it achieved, or when it was into the British territory, the engine used to stop, and the bomb used to, at the control surfaces, used to change, and the bomb would land and then do its job. So, but this cruise missile technology had a disadvantage. The speeds were very, very low, and the home chain radars could track these cruise missiles. And also there were anti-aircraft guns which could engage these cruise missiles. So later on, so the Germans built the first ballistic missile, which is called the V2. So the V2 was the first ballistic missile. It had speeds close to around 5 to 6 kilometers per second. It used to reach altitudes up to 80 to 90 kilometers. And then it had a range close to around 300 to 400 kilometers. So, this was niche technology at that time, and it had gyroscopes. Okay now? Okay. So, inertial navigation, gyroscopes, and then obviously it did not have the GPS and then rest of the things to guide it. But as soon as the missile lifted off, it had, it used to tilt and then make it move towards the British area. So this was the starting point, and V2 missile was, it is the genesis of all the space launch vehicles and the ballistic missile technology which we have now. So after that, we have a lot of countries which have developed multiple missiles, SRBMs, IRBMs, ICBMs, and very, very long-range missiles. The Western adversary, and we have the Eastern adversary, they have developed a lot of ballistic missiles, and also cruise missiles. We have seen in the war in the Russia-Ukraine war, and the war which is going on in the Middle East now, the cruise missiles are ruling the roost. So Tomahawk missiles, Caliber missiles, and then P-800 Onyx, all these are being used, and then they're being used effectively. And there is no effective countermeasure to these missiles as on date. So that is still, I mean, countries have to build countermeasures, develop radars, and then have interceptors to get these things down. So apart from these, conventional ballistic missiles will follow a ballistic trajectory, and cruise missiles, we have very low trajectories which have an altitude of 30 to 40 meters, and then sea skimming missiles. So we have the next generation technology which is hypersonic. So anything beyond Mach 5 is hypersonic. So there are two categories in hypersonic missile. One is the hypersonic glide vehicle and the hypersonic cruise missile. So hypersonic glide vehicles are launched from a booster. So the hypersonic vehicle is put on top of booster, and then at the edge of the atmosphere, the hypersonic glide vehicle is released. So hypersonic glide vehicle, as soon as it enters the atmosphere, it will have the capability to maneuver itself. So in order to intercept these hypersonic vehicles or hypersonic missiles, it is not only, it's not sufficient to get few detections of these hypersonic missiles through radars, because you will not be able to predict the trajectory. Unlike a normal ballistic trajectory, you should keep on detecting and tracking it, and then see what is the next move of the missile. So you need to have different set of defenses. Continuously looking radars, other sensors, which will give an update of the hypersonic glide vehicles. The reaction times are very, very low. You have to detect the target, track the target, give it to an interceptor, which will bring the missile down. So obviously, there is always a technology, race between the defense technologies and the offensive technologies. So defense technologies, you build up, defense mechanism which involves radars, sensors, and then the interceptors. Offensive technologies, we get into MIRVs, MRVs, MARVs. So MRVs are technologies which are, in use now. So the Western adversaries and the Eastern adversaries have launched multiple missions, and they have MIRV and MRV capabilities as on date. So these are the security threats which we face, and then as a nation we are gearing up to address all these threats. So this is the first part of my talk. Second part is the space segment. The space segment is, it is all the future battles will start in space. So all the space assets which monitor the Earth, PNT systems, and then communication systems will all be disabled first. Then disabling is the first thing. Then you isolate your country and then strike with missiles and whatever weapons you have. So Chinese have demonstrated capabilities where there are rendezvous maneuvers where they get into co-orbits. Then they can engage your satellites or get very close to the satellites, do an inspection. So these are all next generation capabilities which we are looking at. So in order to address all these threats, it is essential that we have PMD system and the SSA system, basically space situational awareness system, as to what the missiles are doing and what our adversaries are doing to our space assets. So this is the brief about all the security.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And now I request Dr. S.K. Vasudeva, a distinguished strategic analyst, defense technologist. He retired from DRDO as the Chief Controller Strategic Systems. And not only that, thereafter, from 2013 to 2025, he worked in the office as a senior fellow in the principal scientific advisor to the Government of India. So over to you for a few points that you feel are relevant to the strategic continuum that we are talking about.
I'm going to speak. I'm not going to present anything. Okay. Good morning to everybody, and I'm thankful to General Saab for inviting me here and the SIA Foundation. And you see, the topic was interesting, so that I think I will be able to justify few points which I thought only few days back when I got the invitation. And, I am not an expert of the space or sea, but I will share my thoughts on this. Now, we are you see, gathered here not only as scientists or policy thinkers, we are gathered as custodians of a nation whose geography is a destiny, a nation flanked by contested waters, ringed by disputed mountains, surveilled from orbit and now increasingly menaced from beneath the waves. The strategic canvas has never been wider, and the cost of ignorance has never been higher. The nation that commands the seabed, the skies, and the spectrum commands its own tomorrow. Now, our satellites are in space. They are orbiting in silence. Our submarine cables sleep on the ocean floor. And you see, we have got these cables through which the data is flowing. So, nation that cannot protect its space to seabed continuum cannot protect its sovereignty. These are not assets; they are the lifelines. So, we have to protect all the assets. So, we are in the age of non-contact warfare. We should understand this is the adversaries. They are ready for the non-contact warfare rather than the actual war. So now the threat landscape is very clear to us that we have to protect our satellites, we have to protect our cables, and above all these means are conveying the data. And data is the most precious for us. If data fails, then this whole system will fail. So we have to protect that from the cyberspace, our satellites, ground stations, command uplinks and telemetry networks and persistent targets. And we all know the Viasat incident which created a lot of problem, and thousands of satellites terminals across Europe were disabled within hours when the Russia started the Ukraine war. So that we have to keep in mind. The next conflict, as I told you, we are in the era of the non-contact warfare, and the first shots will not be fired. They will be severed. Cables cut, satellites blinded, uplinks jammed before a single soldier crosses the border. Now, you see, China people, Army Strategic Support Forces, PLASSF, doesn't think of domains. It thinks of systems that span seabed sensors, undersea cables, anti-satellite missiles, cyber intrusion nodes, and electronic warfare platforms. All integrated, all networked, all aimed at achieving what Chinese doctrine calls informatized dominance. And India must respond with equivalent system thinking, and that systematic response must begin here in our laboratories. Our defense research establishment, our universities, and this very Congress. So, outer space is no longer domain of exploration, it's a war-fighting domain. Every major military operation today depends on space assets for navigation, communication, intelligence gathering, weather protection, and precision strike guidance. Destroy those assets, and a modern military is effectively blinded. So this is very important. You see the topic which has been chosen. So now, besides kinetic capability, this has to be, all the assets have to be protected, and so that we can communicate, the communications are not broken. And now I will just come to the, final points. I will not take much time. So India's three-pillar protection strategy. So the first pillar is awareness. See everything, miss nothing. You can't protect that you cannot see. India must urgently build a full spectrum domain awareness architecture spanning orbital to abyssal depth, and in space that means a dedicated space situational awareness, SSA. The ground-based optical and radar telescope supplemented by space-based SSA. In the undersea domain, this means deploying a maritime seabed surveillance grid across our EEZ. Fixed hydrophone arrays, autonomous water vehicles on persistent patrol, and AI-enabled acoustic processing that can distinguish a hostile submarine from the whale song with millisecond precision. So if we see, a lot of sensors are required to protect our assets. And the pillar 2 strategy is resilience. Resilience, harden, disperse, and redundify. Awareness without resilience is merely informed helplessness. Our assets must be hardened against attack and architected for survivability. And then coming down to the pillar 3, that is deterrence. Make the cost prohibitive. Deterrence is the final pillar. And it is the most demanding because it requires credible capability, demonstrated will, and clear doctrine. So now what I want to come to the final point is that from seabed to space, the strategic continuum is India's to command if we chose to command it. And the way forward for India is 6-point national agenda. Designate and legislate. Declare cable, landings, offshore energy, and the ground segment critical information infrastructure. As far as my knowledge goes, it has not been declared as critical infrastructure. So the one fused picture, a nation space to seabed awareness architecture linking IFC, IOR, Defense Space Agency, NTRO, Navy, Coast Guard, and this. So this is the second point. One is the authority to act, which I told. Now this is C. Sense and deep and high. Indigenous seabed sensors arrays, as I discussed, own the repair and the route. You see, we don't have the repair facilities. We have to hire the ship from abroad to repair our cables. Secure the data, then partner and build indigenous. And what Congress must do, final points I am going to come, is that we should have these three points. First, they recommend the establishment of a National Space to Seabed Protection Command under the Chief of Defense Staff, integrating the Defense Space Agency, the Naval Hydrographic Office, the National Technical Research Organization NTRO, and ISRO SSA division into a single unified command with clear authority, clear accountability, and clear funding. Second, recommend that the next defense research and development budget ring fence a minimum of 15% specifically for space asset protection. And third is recommend that India formally introduce a space and seabed asset protection bill in Parliament, providing the legal framework for declaring cable protection zones, authorizing preemptive cyber defense of satellite infrastructure, and mandating minimum security standards of all critical space ground segment facilities. So I will sum it in one line: C, secure, sustain; designate, fuse, sense, secure, and sustain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, I was to give another round and ask a few questions. I think we're running late by around 10 minutes. So I'll just give about 2 minutes of my few points. See if a question or two we can take or discussions in the final remarks. As a moderator, I will say one thing. Two loosely, I won't say loosely used terms, but extensively used terms is whole of nation approach and multi-domain integration. Everybody wants to do it, right? Everybody speaks about it. How to tangibly convert that thing into actionable roadmap, that is the biggest thing. We are talking about a new continuum that we're talking about, from seabed to space, right? It's very vast. The blind spot down below, right? So from the seabed to the extremes of the cosmos we are talking about. We are talking about whole sorts of domain as Ashish has brought it out. We are talking about cyber, we are talking about critical emerging technologies, we are talking about disruptive technologies, we are talking about the new oil that is data, mastery of that. And I'm not talking about ethanol, okay? So such like things, multi-domain integration, multi-domain precision warfare, and I will rather not focus too much into warfare. It is more than that. It is securing the data, and I will not get too oriented towards the security part of this. The security is everybody, each domain, those 15, 16 domains that have to be understood. And my personal interpretation is, no matter how big a nation you are, how well developed your nation you are, you have to be Atmanirbhar. But Atmanirbharta does not mean no Nirbharta. Some amount of complementarity, supplementarity will. So we need to get up for that. This is a futuristic security landscape canvas we are thinking of. We are talking about threats, we are talking about capabilities. There are people around us who are the biggest rogues in this part of the world, and they're negotiating peace somewhere else for the certain other powers that we are talking about. We have to have integrated approach, the threat-based, right? And then how do we develop the capability? Be rest assured at the moment, irrespective of spectacular achievements in intermittent and other domains, we require a finite, expeditious development of capability. How do we do it? Navy, undersea water, missiles, BMD, Army, Navy, Air Force, cyber, what have you. There is a finite kitty of 2%. At least the defense will get. So we'll have to really work it out, and not the normal pace that the Indians are generally used to. It is a finite time. One war is over. I feel that we have been more at conflict rather at peace from 1947. And I've done a detailed analysis on our and Israeli comparison, pros, cons, similarity, this particular thing. Develop capability across the domain. And if we do it, you'll be slightly, the threats, there'll be a bit of a mitigation. So sir, I think we'll give one minute to the closing remarks and then proceed for lunch, because I can see dirty looks coming to me from some quarters. And, so over to you, sir. The summing up from whatever that you'd like to say.
Sir, listening to the concrete and collaborative work. All right, sir, Ben. So we invite our industry partners and startups to come forward, and we'll be 100% will ensure that we'll be encouraged to take the challenges, and we'll be traveling with you and we'll work with you. Do not see that initially you may find it difficulty to survey, but the future is in your hand. So wholeheartedly we are welcome you. Please join with us the defense development activities. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Nothing. I just have an appeal. I'll request you to go back and spend 5 minutes thinking about what I said, and right in the end, what I didn't have time to say. If you believe the logic is correct, please be our voice in taking us forward. It is time for us to form that integrated air and space force. You have to say it, then it will come to me. Saying it is less credible than when you say it. So if you think I'm right, research yourself, make up your mind, and please help us in that. Thank you.
I'll just thank the organizers for giving my foundation and our panel a chance to take part in this. Thank you so much, sir. Over to Dr. Sudhir.
Sometime back, about a month back, it was reported that 4 Russian satellites, they became co-planar with, I think, a US satellite over Ukraine, which was doing surveillance and giving feedback to Ukraine. So this one capability do we have or not, we have to think about it. The second is with the Nayak down. We do not have any GPS. Right now we are depending upon the US, then Russian system and INS, but without Indian, our own GPS system, we are really handicapped. I have a first-hand experience. When we were about to conduct the flight test, the GPS was switched off. And when it was switched off, we were unable to get the signals. And we counted on the INS and reached to the destination. So these 2 capabilities have to be acquired. Thank you.
Yeah. In order to have credible deterrence against emerging threats, be it MIRVs, MRVs, HGVs, or space-based threats, we need to have elaborate systems, a network of sensors, and then integrated command control, and then right now it should be a multi-layered, multi-tiered, multi-domain, and everything integrated. So this is the next way to go forward, and then take down all the threats.
So you see, protection is a game of sensors. We have to be Atmanirbhar in the field of sensors. Sensors have to be everywhere to protect ourselves. And this is very important field, and I don't think even simple sensors we are making. Everything is imported. So this is a very important field, and the private industry has to come and design the sensors for different type of the threats which we are facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Sorry for the time, so we call it here.
Thank you so much, our esteemed moderator and panelists. I understand the time was less, but I think the points were very well taken and a great session indeed. We will now break for lunch. Before that, can we have a quick group picture, please? And just a small quick announcement. For lunch, we are breaking for lunch right now, and I would request all the speakers and the VIPs to stay in this hall, and the rest of the other panelists and attendees can be at all other halls as Desire and Desire Hall, yeah, the main hall, and Sovereign as well. So all the VIP and speakers are requested to have their lunch over here in this hall itself. Thank you. Again, we meet again at 3:35 for the next session. Thank you.